In this video, I will be installing the custom landing light kit on my 70mm Freewing F-9 F5 Cougar. Now, this kit, along with many other items, are available on my store, and the links are in the description of this video. Now, the F-9 F5A fighter plane is actually, for its size, a very spacious and easy to access model, which makes installation of this particular kit pretty straightforward and simple. Probably one of the easiest installs in my fleet. And if you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Let's get to it, shall we? To complete this installation, you will need my 70mm F9 F5 landing lights kit. You can either get the complete kit or download the STL files, both of which have links available in the description of this video. The kit contains one 3D printed ABS nose wheel light, two 3D printed ABS reflectors, two 3D printed ABS strut mounts, three bright white LEDs, one PPM switching module, one 68 ohm resistor, two 3x5mm cap screws, three 1x5mm Phillips head screws, 50 inches of 30 gauge 2 conductor wire. And to install the kit, you will need an Allen key, a small Phillips head screwdriver, soldering iron and solder, fishing wires, and of course, a transmitter to test everything out. This model is pretty straightforward, especially for its particular size. So we're just going to start by opening up and removing our battery compartment cover here. And this is where a decent amount of our work is going to be done, is up in this battery compartment. But of course, we have to get the wires and the lights from the wheels into this compartment. Now, to do this install, we have to remove the wings. So we'll flip it over temporarily so that we can see the underside of the wings and these releases. Now, there's two levers here on the undersides of the wings. And to remove the wing, you just simply pinch these two levers together and pull the wing off. Now, the wing does have a quick connector for the aileron and flaps, but I've already disconnected that. That plugs into there, but you would ordinarily unplug that to remove the wing. But it's just that simple. And we will reach underneath and pull this wing off. And the same thing. That quick release connector has already been pulled there, but ordinarily you would unplug that as well. The wire itself, to actually supply the light, is going to be passing through this channel where the double connector is connected. So we're going to start there. So we're going to grab one of our fishing lines and we're going to just feed it into that channel that wire comes through. And then we just kind of pivot around and we'll see in a second where it appears in the battery compartment. And you can kind of feel for the end of the wire. And if you're like me with two fishing lines, you can use another one to grab the end of the first fishing line and pull it out so that we can see it. We just grab our wire, twist it a little bit so that it doesn't come loose while being fed through, and just pull the fishing line back through. And of course, being careful not to snag it on the foam or the other wires. Pull it back through and out. Disconnect it from the fishing line and leave about enough slack to reach maybe an inch or so beyond the surface of the table. And then we're just going to pull this into our main compartment. Just kind of overhang a little bit. And we're going to go around to the other side with our fishing line. And we're going to feed it in the other side. And do the same thing. Pull our fishing line through. And this time we don't have to tie a knot on the end because we're still working on the other end of this wire. And we just kind of hook it on there, pull it back through, holding on to the end that's already out this side, and pull the wire out the other side. Now here's where we're going to be a little bit tricky with the wire. We're going to hold on to this and we're going to pull the loose end of the wire out the other side of the plane like this. And then we're going to go in and we're going to grab the center of it and we're going to just pull the center forward so that the distance here stays the same, and we're just pulling the slack out on the other side so that the wires coming out of the left side of the plane are the same distance above the surface as on the right side of the plane. So about that much wire. And then we double check that it didn't get pulled through on that side. And then what we're going to do is we're going to gather up our wires here, and we're going to grab our scissors and snip our wires about right there. And that should we should end up with about another 18 inches or so worth of wire that's going to go for our nose wheel. Now, access to the nose wheel is probably even simpler than access to the main wheels. So here's our nose gear steering servo, and there's a pass-through straight from the nose gear steering servo down out of the bottom of the airplane. So you just feed your fishing line through there. You should be able to see right here where the fishing line comes right through. So we're going to just grab our remaining wire. We're going to hook the two onto this fishing line like so. Let me flip the plane back over and pull the line through. And of course, always being careful not to snag on anything important. Pull those through. We hold on to one end of the wire to make sure that we don't pull it all the way through. And then pull the loose ends through. And just like that, all three of our wires are inside of the battery compartment. Now that all the wires have been run, we just simply do a little bit of soldering. Now the LEDs, as always, they have a short lead and a long lead. The long lead is positive or on the red wire. The short lead is negative or on the black wire. All of our LEDs have been attached. So as far as our soldering, we can focus now on the battery compartment. The wiring to connect all this together is pretty straightforward. So you just take our three black wires coming in, one for the nose, one for each of the main gear. And I'm gonna just twist these guys together to make it a little bit less stressful for me to solder. Tin all these guys right there. And then our PPM switching module that comes in the kit has a servo plug on the end, and it also has a battery plug on the end. We don't need the battery plug, so we're just going to get that guy out of there. And then we're going to solder it like so. And then we do the same thing for our red leads. Now our red leads do need the resistor attached, so we're going to start by grabbing our three red leads. I'm going to twist those guys together. They get our 68 ohm resistor. We're going to just solder that guy right around there. That ought to secure it. And then we solder it to the resistor. And just like that, all of our soldering is done. And we just completely encase that resistor and those wires in this black blob. And of course, try not to get any of your insulation material onto the LEDs because they need to press fit into the reflectors. Now that the LEDs have been soldered and insulated, it's time to install them into the reflectors. And it's important to note that the LEDs are press fit into the reflectors. So the way that I do it is essentially just kind of, should not need any glue or anything. Press fit it into there. Like so. And you can see the light protruding out into the reflector. And we do the same thing for our main gear LEDs. Just push them into there. There we go. To install the nose wheel landing light, it actually does not install onto the strut, but instead it installs on this kind of brace here. The way that it sits is facing forward, and we use our 1x5mm Phillips head screw, and we just thread it into the opening on the light, and it passes through the opening in the oleo and across to the other side of the light, like so. And the light kind of can jiggle around or move around a little bit on there, and that's fine because when the airplane is actually in motion, you want that to be able to move so that it doesn't interfere with the mechanism. We're going to take one of our main gear strut mounts, and in order to install that, we're going to need to take this wheel well door off. The wheel well door is held on by 2 Phillips screws. We just kind of undo those. Like so. And then we take one of our main gear strut mounts, clamps around the strut, and then slides into place like that, so that this arm extends down. And then we take one of our 3x5mm cap screws, kind of started threading, and then we secure it in place. Then we grab our 1x5mm screw, feed it through the reflector and into the mounting hole on the strut mount. And if you want, you can put a drop of glue there to kind of hold that in place, but the tension from the screw should be sufficient to hold it in place. Now we're going to secure the wire so that it does not interfere with the operation of the retract mechanism. We're going to secure the wire to the front of the strut here so that it does not prevent the strut from closing the entire way when the wheel retracts. It is important that you don't put anything other than something as thin as a strip of transparent tape like this. It is important that you don't put anything on this strut that has any thickness other than about the thickness of this tape, because that will prevent the strut from closing the whole way, and your wheels will retract and they will not come back out. All right, so we just take this piece of tape and our wire, And the reason that we're securing this is so that the wire doesn't work its way around and get pinched between the strut and the retract mechanism. So we just put that on there, keeping it flat against the back of the strut. And then we're going to give a little bit of slack here, because slack will also do the same thing. It'll prevent the retract from retracting the whole way. And we're going to secure it underneath without blocking this access hole here. Secure it to the underside of the panel with some slack so that it doesn't interfere with the mechanism. And then the last little piece of tape is just to secure the wires to the inner wall here, because we don't want those wires getting in the way of the wheel. So we just put a little piece of tape there. And those wires are safe and out of the way inside the wheel well. Main gear is a little bit easier to deal with because we already have our wire kind of out of the way by the wheel well door. So we're really just going to secure it right about here with a little bit of slack so that we don't snag the mechanism. So we just grab a little bit of tape. And we're going to just secure it right there. And then reattach our wing by plugging in our quick connect for the flap and aileron servos. Just snap that in there. How about we do it this way? Connect our servo connector, and then insert our spar back in, line everything up. And snap our wing in place. And then we repeat the same thing on the other side. And the last thing we need to do is go inside of the battery compartment, take some tape, and we're just going to secure all of our landing light wires inside of the battery compartment. Just put it along this inner wall here between those first two bulkheads. Secure it there. And then bundle this little bit of wire together here, and we're going to secure our PPM switching module along the back side of the compartment. And the only thing left to do is